anything that we do to change our physical body won't actually change that negative self-image in our head. It won't matter how much we work out, how much weight we lose, how little food we eat. All of that stuff won't actually change how we feel about our bodies. We actually become locked into the allocentric perspective. Have you ever had a moment where a friend offers you a compliment, but it completely bounces off of you? For instance, they may say, "Oh wow, you look so fit, you look so healthy," but that doesn't actually land. It doesn't penetrate your self-image and impact how you see yourself. There's a reason, according to cognitive science, why this happens, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. My name's Julia, and I'm currently studying clinical psychology with an emphasis on somatics. I'm super fascinated about the connection between our mind and our body, and specifically our self-image and how we can embody self-love. So it turns out that our self-image can be resistant to lived experiential data. What I mean by this is that we have an image of ourselves and our bodies in our mind that's stored in a place that is inaccessible to lived information. According to spatial cognition, we have two different ways of perceiving space. The first is egocentric, where we're experiencing things from our own eyes. You can think of this as first-person player in a video game where you are literally the character, seeing everything from their perspective. The second way that we store memories is through an allocentric perspective. This is more equivalent to third-person player mode in a video, where you see the character from behind and you're not actually in their body. So the way we store spatial information, either in an egocentric perspective or an allocentric perspective, impacts how we store our own memories. You may have a memory of going to lunch with your friends, and you might remember it from that first-person perspective, where you're sitting at the table, talking with your friends, eating your food. That's an egocentric perspective, where you're in the first-person player mode. Alternatively, you might have a memory of the lunch where you weren't actually in your body. You were removed, observing the lunch from afar. Although you experienced the lunch in your body, eating the food, talking to your friends, your memory of it is from outside of your body in a third-person perspective. So what does any of this spatial cognition stuff have to do with our self-image? Well, it turns out that our self-image can be stored in an allocentric perspective rather than an egocentric perspective. This happens because we live in a sexually objectifying culture where we learn to view our bodies from the outside, from an allocentric third-person perspective, where we can judge, criticize, and force our body into the expectations of the external observer. Rather than having our self-image built up from our inner experience of our bodies, we learn to view ourselves from the outside, and we construct our self-images from all of these little experiences of criticizing or judging our bodies from an external perspective. All of that information is stored in our allocentric memory, and over time creates this narrative about our bodies that can't actually be updated with our lived experience. But remember, allocentric memory is stored in a different way and in a different place than the egocentric memory. And so when a friend compliments us on how we look, that's an egocentric experience that doesn't actually update the allocentric memory of our body image. And this is the part that blew my mind. Over time, as we have more and more stories, narratives from an allocentric perspective about our bodies, we actually become locked into the allocentric perspective. Researchers call this the allocentric lock, where you can do anything to your physical body, but it doesn't actually update your memory of your body. It doesn't actually update your self-image. This is what happens when people have anorexia or body dysmorphia, where they might keep losing weight, but no matter how much weight they lose, it won't actually update their body image that's stored in their allocentric memory. So this just blows my mind. No matter how many times you weigh yourself, you lose weight, a friend tells you that you look good, all of that's just gonna bounce off of your allocentric memory unless you're able to transform your body image from an allocentric perspective into an egocentric perspective. Researchers have found that this takes place when we map our head position and our eye position onto allocentric memories, and that helps them transform them into an egocentric perspective where we're experiencing things from our own body. But we're going to pause for a moment on what we can do about the allocentric lock, and I'm going to first discuss the three main consequences to the allocentric lock. The first consequence of the allocentric lock is experiential. Whatever we do to modify our bodies, if we're locked into the allocentric perspective, it won't actually change how we view ourselves. It won't make us any happier because our self-image of our body is locked in that allocentric memory. So you might lose weight, you might get plastic surgery, you might get super strong, but if you aren't able to transform how you feel about your body into an egocentric perspective, then none of this will matter. It'll all just bounce off of the allocentric memory that's vaulted away. The second consequence of the allocentric lock is both very fascinating and super important. So the allocentric memory of our body, which we can kind of refer to as a virtual or illusory body that actually isn't aligned with the physical form that we have, that virtual body becomes an image schema. An image schema is something that both shapes your past history and your past memories, as well as provides meaning to your current experiences. So for instance, say you have a image schema or virtual body that you believe to be fat or out of shape. This image schema will reorganize all of your past memories to reconfirm and validate the image schema of having a fat, out of shape body. As well as the image schema will also shape your current experience to find information that confirms your idea of having a fat, out of shape body. So you might have a social experience where you go out into the world and you meet some friends, but there's a certain interaction that could be read as ambiguous. But your mind and the image schema will perhaps read into that ambiguous event and use it to confirm the image schema of having a fat, out of shape body. So this is super important. Our body image, that is a virtual body or an illusory body that actually isn't aligned with our physical forms, will shape our past experience and our current experience to reify the image of our bodies as being negative or out of shape or out of overweight. The third consequence of the allocentric lock is that it makes social interactions much more rigid than if you were in an egocentric perspective. Interacting with others socially requires that you know how you are and how you relate to them from a first person perspective. But when we're in the allocentric lock, we're not able to get as much information from an egocentric perspective about where we are and how we are being with other people, which means that we might actually be more static and rigid in our social interactions. I feel like this happens to me when I'm feeling anxious about something I'm wearing, anxious about my body. I feel like that triggers my allocentric memory and makes me have a harder time being at ease and being comfortable with the people that I'm surrounded by. But when I'm in my body, when I'm feeling grounded and actually seeing things, seeing the world from my own two eyes, I actually feel much more comfortable and authentic when I'm interacting with others. So how do we help ourselves get out of the allocentric lock? Researchers have found that one way to counteract the allocentric lock is by using cognitive dissonance therapy, which involves gathering in a group and speaking out against thin beauty ideals and our unrealistic beauty standards in this culture. Cognitive dissonance therapy has been shown to reduce body dissatisfaction, decrease the chances of anorexia or body dysmorphia, as well as decrease body surveillance. However, researchers found that cognitive dissonance therapy wasn't able to actually get at the body shame that people feel. They believe that this is because our body shame is stored along with the allocentric memory. And the cognitive dissonance therapy isn't actually able to update the negative self-image and the body shame that's stored in the allocentric perspective. So what we need to do is transform the shameful memory in the allocentric perspective into an egocentric format. Again, this involves mapping our head orientation onto the allocentric memory in order to transform it into the egocentric perspective. So what does mapping and transforming the allocentric memory into an egocentric format look like in practice? In a pilot study that I conducted of meditative touch, participants showed a statistically significant increase in body appreciation, which is a close correlate of body shame. By spending more time in communion with our bodies, using our own hands to signal to our bodies that they're safe, that they're loved and that they're appreciated, I believe that this helps outweigh our negative self-image that's stored in the allocentric perspective and build out more egocentric memories of enjoying and loving our bodies. If you'd like to try out meditative touch for yourself, I'll link a few videos in the show notes below. To me, what all of this means is that what matters the most is how we relate to our bodies. If we're stuck in the allocentric memory, it won't matter how much we work out, how much weight we lose, how little food we eat. All of that stuff won't actually change how we feel about our bodies. What changes how we feel about our bodies is building out more of an egocentric experience of our bodies through touch, breath, movement. If we want to start loving our bodies, we can't just think our way there. We have to actually be with our bodies and embody the love. So while eating healthy, working out, getting outside are all important parts of having a deep and connected relationship with our bodies, if we're just doing it to lose weight, to look a particular way, or to change our bodies, if we're stuck in the allocentric perspective, then we won't actually feel any better about ourselves. We won't feel more confident, we won't feel more authentic. In order to do that, we have to build out the egocentric experiences of our body in a way that builds positivity, embodies love, and makes us actually appreciate who we are in our physical forms. So in conclusion, we can unfortunately get locked in an allocentric perspective of ourselves where we store negative narratives, negative images of our bodies, where we are actually disconnected from our physical forms. Anything that we do to change our physical body won't actually change that negative self-image in our head. No matter what the world tells us or shows us, we will be stuck in the flawed, imperfect, fat body that we have constructed in our mind. However, when we become aware of the unrealistic beauty standards of our world, we can start combating the allocentric lock and start living more in our bodies. Additionally, when we have more positive experiences of our bodies from an egocentric perspective, where we're in our body, we're grounded, we're connected to our physical forms, that can help transform our negative self-image in our allocentric memory into an egocentric perspective. Every time we choose to intentionally embrace our bodies and be in our bodies from an egocentric perspective, we are choosing free will and liberating ourselves from the oppressive beauty standards of our culture. If you've made it this far, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for listening. Please let me know what you think of this video in the comments below. Does this resonate with you? Do you feel like you're in the allocentric perspective? Do you have any tips for transforming body shame into body appreciation? I'd love to hear it. And thank you for listening, and hopefully I'll see you soon.